Hello, hello, hello. The whistle just sounded. Steelers win in very impressive fashion. How about it? So I always throw this out there beginning of these post-game ones. This one won't be as buttoned up or as detailed or as in-depth as tomorrow, and it'll be a little more emotional. But I'd love to get these to you as soon as humanly possible, so I record them basically in my first opportunity, and on this night game, that is as soon as the whistle ended, basically. So, what a game. Really, really dominant second half. I mean, they're plus 68 now in second half point differential. By far the best in the league. I mean, 31 straight points to finish this thing out. Obviously, the quarterback situation is much better shape. And that's not me taking a victory lap. I know a lot of people wanted Fields, and I understood it. And we'll get to that. And then we'll really talk about it tomorrow. But it was night and day, and a lot of it's just experience. Playing quarterback's really hard in this league, and you've done it a long time. You know, we saw Flacco come in and do really well against Steelers. Been around the block. So, as we usually do, I'm going to start with halftime stats, all my thoughts at the half. Then we'll get into the full game stats, you know, little nuggets all through there, and then just a bunch of little random thoughts about the game. And then get this to you, you know, file it and really dig into the deep stuff for tomorrow. So at the half, it was 15-13. And I wrote, it really should be 13-13. That Minka block, you know, aided nonsense was just a flat out terrible call. And I would say the exact same thing if it happened to a Jets player. And that cost them points. I mean, I really thought that was a 2-point difference, of course. But at the half, I was concerned. There's no doubt about that. Rodgers was 13 of 19 for 158, a touchdown and an interception. And maybe most importantly, or most telling, they flashed up the next gen stat. 2.3 average time to throw. Really, really fast. Like a little bit quicker than Ben's last year. So getting to him was really tough. Then he was picking guys apart pretty well and starting to feel himself, and Adams, all that good stuff. And at this point, Russ was only 8 of 17 for 145. A touchdown, no interceptions. His time to throw was 3-1, which didn't really worry me. But there were certainly some rough moments. I mean, Austin had an early drop that I thought was inexcusable. But then Russ was bouncing balls, and you know that second and third series was, maybe I shouldn't have backed this guy, you know? But at that point, they had kept Breece Hall, who's a really, really good player, to 8 carries for 21 yards and a touchdown. But he had 4 catches for 93 yards and was really making an impact on the game. Pickens was as well. He was 3 for 67 with a touchdown at the half. And they went into halftime. Both teams had yardage. 182 for the Steelers, 173 for the Jets. Steelers had 41 rushing yards, 3.2 yards per carry. The Jets only averaged 2.4 yards per carry, 22 rushing yards for the half. Passing yards are about the same, 151 to 141. Jets favored there. Yards per play, 5.9 versus 6.0 for the Jets. Time of possession, 14-15 versus 15-45 for the Jets. Close. Turnovers, Jets had 1, Steelers didn't. But third downs were big at this point. 0 for 6 in the first half on third downs. Jets were 2 for 5. Took a little while till the rhythm started coming in on third downs, which red zone third downs are always the hardest things to execute. Each team had a sack in the first half. Steelers only had 2 penalties, but for 35 yards, and one of them flat out cost them 2 points on the scoreboard. Jets were 4 for 36. Awful tackling by the Steelers early. And some of it's Breece Hall being really good, but that was rough. Really poor tackling. I talked about that penalty on Minka. Brutal. And I just wrote, man, Steelers pass protection is bad. They were really struggling in the first half in protection. And I understood it. You know, I mean, McDonald's a really good player. He was beating up on Jones. Quentin Williams was causing all kinds of problems, particularly with McCollum, who got a lot better. And then I want to throw this out there too, because John Ledyard does really good work. I like John. I know John. And he threw this out at halftime. And somebody brought to my attention that the Steelers had rushing calls on a 2nd and 5, a 2nd and 9, a 2nd and 10, a 2nd and 6, a 2nd and 9, 3 of them for negative yardage. And basically he was saying, come on, Arthur Smith, you got to throw the ball in these situations. 2nd and long can't be rundowns. And I read that and thought, I concur. Like, what are we doing here? All these 2nd and longs are just going to turn into 3rd and longs. And that was an issue, but it got a lot better, obviously. But they were taking downfield shots, though. And the Jets were having defensive back injuries. That fade that they threw to Pickens against the backup corner so reminded me of my Pitt days when I was there with Larry Fitzgerald. Like, I always say this all the time. Like, there were plays in games when we could have put up on the scoreboard, we're throwing the ball to Larry here on a fade. And in that one, you look at Russ, peek over at Pickens to his right, and then pretend like you didn't see him, snap the ball, look off the safety, look to the left, and that ball's going to Pickens 9 out of 9 times. You know what I mean? And that was a lot of what happened tonight. That's a big thing about Wilson, is getting them in the right calls. All the procedural stuff worked out really, really well. They also lost their right guard, Vera Tucker, who's a really good player. Well, not have a great year, but he's a good player. And then, unfortunately, there was kind of a catastrophic incident later where they had to go to their 3rd right guard. And Pierre played a lot for Jackson. I want to know exactly what's going on with that. That's one of the detriments of recording this so early, but I will know all that tomorrow. This episode is brought to you by BetOnline, the world's most trusted platform and your number one source for everything football. From the NFL to college, BetOnline is every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads while the games are being played. When the game's over, head over to the online casino and get on a game of blackjack or poker, or unwind with over 150 slot games. Head to the website today and use promo code BLEAV, B-L-E-A-V, all caps. BetOnline, the game starts here. Now, this game ended 37-15, and you might have noticed the Jets had 15 points at the half. Rodgers' stat line didn't look bad. 24-39 for 276, touchdown, 2 picks. But he made more mistakes than he has been, and I've been kind of telling you that going in. I mean, the old Rodgers, this version, the old Rodgers, compared to the young, in his prime Rodgers, makes more mistakes. Russ ended up 16-29 for 264, 2 touchdowns, no picks. Looked really good. Najee, 21 for 102 and a touchdown in a nasty fashion once again, to say the least. And I love that they gave him the ball there and scored at the end. Breece Hall ended up with 12 for 38 on the ground. Touchdown, yeah. But also 6 for 103 receiving. Very dangerous player. It's a guy that they absolutely want to feature. And he did good things, but not enough. Pickens ended up with 5 for 111 and a touchdown. Steelers over 400 yards in this game, 409. Jets are at 323. 149 rushing yards. Jets are at 54. Passing yards were about the same, 260 to 269. Yards per play were about the same, but favored the Steelers 6-2 to 5-9. Over 32 minutes of possession for the Steelers. Just under 28, of course, for the Jets. 0 turnovers, as opposed to 2 for New York. And a missed 4th down conversion, which I treat very much as a turnover. So really a 3-0 differential. Third downs end up being 5 for 14, so that got better. 2 for 2 on 4ths, though. Jets ended up 3 of 10, only 1 of 2 on 4th downs. Only 1 sack apiece. These quarterbacks got it out quick in Rodgers' side, and were quite elusive, by the way. Wilson, that he was under a lot of pressure. and got out of the way and threw it away, or got out of the way and made a play, or, it was an issue, but he can still move, guys. I mean, like, that made me crazy with the stuff leading up this week, that treating him like he's end of career Ben or Matt Ryan's final season, like he has no athletic ability whatsoever. He still moves really well. When it was all said and done, 4 penalties for 36 for the Steelers, 5 for 50 for the Jets. Now, not to sound too much like a homer, there were a lot of holds that were not called, particularly on the Jets O-line, but both sides of it. Maybe the average fan on Sunday night would prefer that, but it's fine. I mean, it balanced itself out, but I did think Tyron Smith versus Highsmith was a bit of a hold fest. Russ just makes such a big difference. I mean, on many levels. He throws the ball with much more touch. The playbook is much more expansive. There was a play, you'll probably remember it, ended up being like a 12-yard run by Warren where he almost scored. And Russ came up the line of scrimmage, and you can just tell he's much more vocal, moving people around. But he saw the Jets defense, checked to a play, and the Jets started scrambling, knowing that, oh no, we're in trouble here. And he checked to a play where there was a bubble over the right guard. There was a hole in the defense. Snapped the ball before they could make a second adjustment, the adjustment to the adjustment. Warren runs through a big hole. Like, that's just veteran stuff. That's not a knock on Fields. It's just, this is a guy that's been around and been in Super Bowls and been around for a long time. I thought Najee ran extremely hard and with such attitude, and many instances where it's just a street fight with him. And I also think Warren looked back to being Warren, which I expected and I was hoping, but I think that really adds to the offense. The O-line definitely improved throughout the game. Still kind of holding on, I mean, it looks like Frazier will be back sooner than later, and I didn't think McCollum was terrible. He had his moments. McCormick did some really good things. Broderick Jones had some rough moments, as usual. But as a unit, it certainly improved throughout the course of the game. Pickens did some miraculous stuff, some highlight reel stuff. But I also came away from this game going, they still need another receiver. I mean, as battered and as injured as the Jets secondary was, could you imagine if you had another strong receiving option and could just keep them in nickel or dime? You don't want to live in 11 personnel when you're trying to close out a game, if that means putting Jefferson and Austin out there and Washington isn't, or something like that. But if you had another really legit receiver and you kept them in that lighter personnel, you could still run the ball. But that's for another day. The defense certainly figured things out, realized Rodgers was not going to hold the ball long, and the tackling greatly improved. That was a key. All the TJ Watt doubles. I mean, I assume you watched this game and they pointed it out time and time again. And obviously it's very real. And then one play they don't, he swats the ball right in Rodgers' face. Like, why would you ever leave him single coverage on a pass play? And I talked about the Highsmith getting held a lot, which probably was true on both sides, but I thought that was the part that stood out a lot. It's been a trend for years now, but this team swats passes at the line of scrimmage. Last year, only the Chiefs had more. I mean, so that's a regular occurrence for this team. As are block kicks, by the way. I mean, the most in the league over the last 3 seasons, including this one, 2.5 seasons. Pretty crazy. I mean, the way that they block kicks, and they should have had 2 in this game. I did mention that they had a special teams advantage coming in. That was absolutely true. And talking about secondaries, Jets was pretty beat up, really beat up. But Beanie Bishop makes 2 huge plays. I mean, clearly they were looking to target him, as most teams do. Porter had an excellent game. Elliott made a lot of big plays and has been a phenomenal addition. But Minka's the glue. I mean, Minka hanging back there and doing what he does allows for so much of that to happen. And it's kind of selfless role. He's not going to get a lot of picks and big plays, but his presence allows others to do that. And again, Steelers had 31 straight points to close this game out in a very dominant fashion. It's one game. I don't get too crazy about Russell Wilson, but obviously the quarterback situation is taking care of itself from now on. At this point, I don't know that he'll be this good every week. Who knows? But that was really encouraging. All right, everyone. I will get back to you tomorrow with the more in-depth snap counts and all kinds of observations and stats and all that good stuff. See you later.